You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side.
First off, thank you for coming.
Yeah, man. Cheers.
God
Congratulations.
Thank you.
This is the setup right here.
It's, you know what? It's not a bad spot. I spend a lot of time here now.
Yeah.
And I love every minute.
It's so funny to see
Let's
this.
get this guy a little bit closer.
Yeah, a little bit. There we go. It's funny to see this start to materialize after a few drinks around a fire pit. No.
It was a great idea. And so here we are. Like,
It is.
Full studio.
Those are always fun. We always said growing up, like my brothers and I, we always were, we came up with our best ideas in the hot tub. You know, just the hot tub was like where the idea generation happened.
Yeah.
And for Dry Creek Ranch, it really is the fire pit.
It's the incubator.
It's the incubator.
Yeah, because I mean, this is the thing that I've realized with those fire pits. It's like a slice of humanity because we hang out
Oh, totally.
for like 6-7 hours, and I keep wondering, like, why do people hang out here for so long? And I think people have been starved for connection for so long.
That is no question.
They're just like, dude, I'm not leaving.
Yeah.
Like, you can leave if you want, but I'm in it for the duration.
Totally. I can say that for myself for sure. Over the course of the last couple of years, it's just like you just want to get drawn into people, just be able to sit and talk and be able to say whatever you want to say. Like the conversations around the fire pit, it never goes where you think it's going to go. We start talking about, you know, the universe and philosophy, and the range of topics is so wide. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's not all high class, though.
No,
I mean, like, let's
all
not.
high class. No, it's really not. It goes from there to like, what's better, Jack in the Box or the Taco Bell?
I think that argument has been settled. I mean,
Jack in the Box, clearly.
Jack in the Box.
If they deliver ranch.
I mean, I've eaten more fast food hanging out around that fire pit at like 1 a.m.
Yeah.
When we got, Jafar delivering it to us.
Right. Yeah, I swore off of fast food, and all of a sudden it's re-entered my life. It's so bad.
But it's so good.
It is.
The Jack in the Box tacos. So this is something that I've kind of told you about a little bit. I'd love your thoughts on it. I swear to God, it seems like we have gone back to college moving in here. Except we're not, like, we're hanging out with dudes we like. We're not beholden by classes. Like, we all have to go to work. That's fine.
Right.
But then it's like, we have our houses. We have our families. That's awesome. But then from like 8 to midnight or 8 to 2 a.m., like 3 times a week, we have our boys.
Yeah, totally. It's kind of what I hoped adulthood would look like. In my adolescent mind, I was hoping that adulthood would look like that. Like you have friends around you all the time, and you're still, being a little wild and crazy, and you still have, just unabashed rule, like being able to say whatever you want to say without consequences, and people judging you, and being able to, but also like having the flexibility with work and actually not being broke like you were in college and high school. It's like, this is kind of how I wanted adulthood to look.
You had a really clear idea of what you were looking at.
What's
the future.
Yeah.
I mean, when you asked me, you're like, hey, Matt, what do you see it for? I'm like, I don't know, darkness. I don't know. Like, nothing.
What happens tomorrow?
Yeah, right. Like, as a 24-year-old, like, buddy, I'm just trying to get to dinner.
Yeah.
I
guess we all just hoped that it was going to be fun, right? And then you have patches in adulthood where you're like, wow, this is really hard. This is not as fun as I had imagined. And then, really the course of we've only been here for 4 months. I was just talking to Nicole about this over dinner. I was like, we've only been in the neighborhood for a little over 4 months. That's crazy. Right. Like, just think of the bond that we've created with all the people in this neighborhood, the memories we've already made. Like, I have more memories over the course of the last 4 months than I did in a year and a half during COVID. You know what I mean?
1,000%.
It's wild.
1,000%. Like, COVID essentially, I think a lot of people had the experience, but starting in March, it was this kind of like crisis panic for 2 months.
Totally.
And there was a certain degree of, oh, it's awesome, like we're changing things up and it's going to work out and we're going to survive and it's going to be great. And I went straight to like Zoom teaching, for instance, and that was kind of funny in some ways, terrible in others.
Right.
Kind of funny in some ways. And then after May and like the beginning of June, I feel like this just lead blanket descended. You know the Zoloft commercials where they have the happy little bouncing ball thing?
Yeah. Yep.
And then the rainy cloud comes over? It was It's like a darkness fell on me.
That's right. We were all that bouncing ball in like March and April of 2020, and then it's like, oh, this is going to be with us for a very long time.
Do you remember? Directly after 9/11?
I do. I mean, I remember it's kind of the fallout. I was still, I guess it was still. I think I was 13 at the time, so it was still not like. The magnitude didn't really set in at that age. I don't think. And I started as I started getting into my late teens and early 20s, I'm like, wow, that was really weird. The concept of that is bizarre. But I don't think it really settled in until later on in life where you're like, wow, that the gravity of what happened on 9/11 is unbelievable. And I didn't really appreciate it at the time. But I did feel that, there was it was an eerie sense. I remember seeing it in my parents' face mostly.
Yeah, because there was, I think obviously people dealt with it differently. There were some people that really mobilized and some people very honorably joined the services. And then some people who just descended into this depression, which was really upsetting to see. And that took a long time. I had family members that really got stuck in that. But there was also this sense of, there was such patriotism. There was such love for the United States. And my brother, who's a kind of a darker personality and always very critical of things. Even he was like, go USA.
Right.
Like let's all band together. And I feel like that was very similar in the beginning of March. Very interestingly. So my original podcast, I started in February of 2020.
Right.
It was I was doing these daily podcasts for my students and stuff, and just kind of like thought bubblegum, and I'd go over different ideas I had, things like that, right? And it's funny listening to them now because COVID, I had been established. I'd done like 40 of them before COVID hit.
Right.
And then all of a sudden COVID hits, and I start doing these episodes about, like supporting our local businesses and trying to help our neighbors and like getting takeout pizza and getting extra pizza and taking it to everyone because I wanted the businesses to be there.
Right.
In 2 months when, 2 weeks to flatten the curve. It was like the margin on restaurants is pretty small. 2 weeks is going to be pretty bad if they have to close down. So,
no doubt.
And then, 4 weeks and then 6 weeks and then, you hit the end of April and kind of mid-May, and you can tell that there's like a shift in my mentality because I was coming up with these different ideas and delivering these episodes literally every single day, and then like an interview on the weekend. Man, it got so dark. So like you're saying, during COVID, how many great memories do you have?
Yeah.
It's like a year and a half of dark.
Right. I mean, it was kind of early on. It was, oh, wow, this is I think it was... I was stressed out being a dad, being a husband. You're always trying to make sense of things and protect the people in your nest. And so there was that piece coupled with the nuance of everyone's in this. We're all it's not a me problem, it's an us problem. Like everyone has that. And it's to your point, it was kind of laughed about it during the day, but then you would fret about it at night and go, what is this going to mean? And but it really says something to our society about like how it's the same as 9/11, like you said. It's you go through this period of time where you're really united and you feel like you've got this band of brotherhood, whether it's being an American or just being a human being, and you've got
to take care of
this virus that's spreading around. It's like I'm gonna I want to take care of the vulnerable and make sure that my elderly parents or this these people are taken care of, and there's this kind of this rallying cry of we got to be the best version of us for each other. And then, like you said, as time draws on, then there's opinions that start to get formed about our stance on it and how we're ultimately how we're addressing the problem, and it gets politicized, and it's just like every situation right now, which is really discouraging. It's really hard to find like a uniting situation that unites us in a long duration.
What about monkeypox?
Yeah,
no,
I don't know.
Not so much.
I haven't formulated an opinion. I'm waiting for my side to tell me what my talking points are.
That's the best. That's the best answer I've ever heard. I'm waiting to hear how I should think. They haven't come out. Has Ted said anything? I don't know.
I don't know. Yeah, waiting for Ted. Yeah, waiting for him to tell me what I'm supposed to say.
Yeah. So I actually had this. One of the best things that I came up with. Something that I still think about today is I think it was May. It was the end of May, and did you ever see that that hilarious TikTok or Instagram. It was one of those short videos where this guy's on a morning run and he's running through this nice neighborhood. He's like, dude, it's recycling day. Check this out. And he keeps running up to the recycling. Oh my gosh. It was literally in the first 2 months. And people's little recycling containers on the curb are just chock full of handles. Like everywhere. So and he's like, dude, it's Wednesday morning. What's going on? Because, garbage day. And so he's running through and it was this classic video and kind of this national recognition that for a lot of people they're like, oh,
yep, exactly.
And they just went deep with it because they're like, look, this is so weird and things are getting so odd. Or like they didn't know what to do. And it was almost like like you started drinking, on Zoom.
Yeah, exactly. Hey guys, look at us on Zoom having a cocktail right now. Yeah. It's like 2020, the year that everybody in America developed a drinking problem.
Yeah, right. Well,
collectively.
Okay. So here's the thing. So I'm not a big drinker, and I wasn't then, but I did by the end of May 2020. I started drinking. I was having, and don't judge me, I was having like 4 ginger beers a week. I was like, I was going hard, right?
Wow.
Wow.
That's aggressive.
And look, it's lame to say it that way, but I know like you don't normally drink this much, and if you can call that drinking, I recognize that's nothing.
The point is, it made you go outside your normal habits, right?
Right, and so I started thinking about this in May, and I was like, all right, so look, here's the thing. God willing, this will be the worst thing you ever go through. And I was like, yeah, right, yeah, just a pandemic, right? And I thought back to my dad. So my dad flew helicopters in Vietnam at a young age, went there right out of high school. And he said he became a doctor. He came back and became a doctor and crushed, right? And a friend of his, when he was going through med school at UCSF, had kind of, he wasn't regretful that he hadn't gone to Vietnam. He was regretful that he didn't feel he had a way to gauge who he was. Because obviously going through Vietnam, like you became a grown-up real fast. Like he was flying helicopters at 19. Like the guy was doing a lot. Anyway, so there was the Loma Prieta earthquake, the 89 earthquake in San Francisco, and his friend actually crawled onto the Bay Bridge that had collapsed because somebody was trapped in the car. Their leg was trapped. He had to amputate the leg, drag this guy out, keep the guy alive, by the way, while he's doing this, and drag this guy out. And he said that answered, his friend kind of got a lot of questions about who he was answered in that moment. And so I was thinking about that. I was like sitting in my backyard, trapped, sucking on my ginger beer, feeling bad for myself. And
with your shaggy hair that you haven't
cut. Oh my gosh, right. And I hadn't seen anybody in my family physically for like a long time, like 3 weeks, right? But I thought about that a lot. And I was like, look, you're going to remember who you were in this moment. Like for the rest of your life, even if you don't tell people, if you know that when shit hit the fan, you just drank. Right. As stupid as it is to say, like, I was drinking these, they were tall boys, all right, but the ginger beer. Yeah. It's like, as dumb as that sounds, that was how you made this through. And like, do you really want to be that guy?
Right.
And that was one of the memories from the pandemic that stuck with me. And it was actually like podcast number 70 or something, but it was really important for me to go through that. It's like, look, this isn't going to be fun, but the point is not to have fun. The point is to find out who you are.
Yeah, that's super valuable. Totally agree with you.
And I think, to your point, I think we found out really quickly. The people we were closest with, in general, right? You're going to make bonds and friendships with people where it's not hard, right? Like, it's going to be really hard to get somebody who's super conservative and somebody who's super liberal and get them to easily coexist just for no reason other than friendship.
Right.
Right? Like, they have to be like relatives or something, like your crazy uncle or something, right?
Exactly.
It doesn't matter.
You're forced to converse with them a couple times a year.
Yeah, right. But to be friends, it has to be easy. Like, that's the prerequisite, right? Anyway, so you had a lot of friends that you were very, for the most part, aligned with on a lot of thoughts if you spend any amount of time with them. But as the pandemic went on, you really found out where those thoughts came from, which I found so interesting. I had a dear friend who I went to college with, and he had moved to my street like 4 houses up, specifically because my family lived there. And it's like, this guy was a really dear friend.
That's awesome.
And slowly there was this wedge as things started not making sense, and as well, at least not sense to me. It made sense to him, however he was gauging the world, right? But as questions started popping up for me, I'm like, what are we doing? Like, wait, does this make sense? And it was almost like, it was like whatever CNN said just spat out of his mouth. And I was like, but wait, what about this? Totally. And there was like no response. It was just like repeat, like a broken record.
Yeah, it's really interesting. This whole thing is going to be.
You got to get a little closer to this.
It's going to be.
I'll move it to you.
No, I'm good. There we go.
There you go.
It's going to be written about for decades and decades of how the response was and just how psychologically it played with certain people. And I think one of the things that's been so interesting is that you found out the people that were very skeptical of being, the rules and regulations that were being told, pontificated from leaders, and the people that used critical, some critical thoughts about like, why is that? Just asking questions like, why is our response the right way?
Right.
And for so long, I mean, it was like a year and a half of basically everybody in power telling you, if you question anything, you're not being patriotic, you're not being caring, you're not being empathetic, you're a ultra MAGA person, whatever the case may be. And it was like these labels starting to slap you left and right, when it was really all was just people trying to make sense of things in a very complex world, trying to make sense of things and trying to come to their own conclusion that made sense in their mind. And it's a really interesting just case study of who humans are and how they react to certain situations.
Outside of COVID, okay, so we're past it. I like to think I'm past it, right? And I'm sure there are some people that are.
I'm done.
I see people wearing masks, and that could be for a number of reasons, right? It could be not COVID related. It doesn't matter to me. Here you go, big boy.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. It doesn't really matter to me why people are wearing masks, if it's COVID or not, and whatever. You're wearing a mask, but I don't really think about it. What I tend to worry about is what the lasting effect on community dynamics will be.
Right.
For instance, I went to the HOA meeting last night, like all glorious 2 hours of it.
Good for you. The ultimate dad and husband, just to be hunkered down in an HOA meeting on a Wednesday night. It's just what you want to do.
It got so spicy too. And
yeah.
The thing that I think people are like reeling from is, I think there's an aspect of lack of control that people have realized that they have over local governments. And because of that, I think people are now showing up to local, even an HOA meeting, like, hey, this is my community, right? Like, I'm not just going to go along with whatever you say, because so many of us were burned by our local governments.
Yeah.
And here's something funny. I go out to, when I'm living in NorCal still, in 2021, again, my buddy Ari's like, hey, let's go out and get a drink. And Ari was bougie. I was like, yeah, let's go down to the local watering hole. No. We were going to the Tiki Lounge. Yeah. He was like, we'll start at the Tiki Lounge. I was like, Tiki, what the hell are you talking about, right? So we go to this Tiki Lounge, and Ari is not vaccinated. And great, like, he's one of my dearest friends. I'm like, I don't care at all. Like, let's go. Well, they had instilled a vaccine mandate, right? So the problem is, Ari has this fake vaccine card. Uh-huh. And so he shows the card, and the person looks at it and, waves him in, and we go sit down. And I don't have any problem with that. But the more I thought about it, I was like, this is a horrible situation. Like, we are actually putting ourselves in a terrible situation, because my problem was Ari was lying, and I had no problem with Ari lying, and Ari had no problem lying. Mm-hmm. Okay. And the person letting us into the tiki bar, it's not like she thoroughly checked, right? These were pieces of paper scribbled on with like a big ballpoint. Like, nobody was actually checking, right? So
she's just checking the box on what she has to do.
Right. I'm lying. Ari's lying. The lounge lady's lying. The lounge owner is likely lying, because the lounge owner's like, dude, let him in. Just check, just like you check IDs. Just let him in, right?
Exactly.
Okay. None of that in and of itself seems to be a problem. But the problem comes when you realize that the local politicians were promoting and requiring these laws that no one agreed with, but no one is objecting to. Because functionally, we could get through our day. Like, Ari and I could go to the Tiki Lounge and hang out and drink and do whatever we wanted. It wasn't a problem for us. And therefore, we weren't picketing, right? We weren't telling the politicians this is wrong. The restaurant owners and the restaurant collectives were not boycotting because they got around it. And I was like, you know what? What's going to happen is that they're going to keep pushing additional laws until we cannot get out of it. Mm-hmm. And it will have come 1 step, 2 step, 3 step, 4 step. And we didn't object to the first 4. And then the last tiny step to 5, where it's like, oh no, we actually can't skirt this one.
Right.
When we should have been objecting from the beginning.
Yep, absolutely.
Right. So I think people have this knee-jerk reaction to control creep, which is like, hey, this is not right. This is not right, and I have to let you know right now. This is not okay. I don't stand for this. And I don't know if that was really motivating people last night, but people were really upset.
Yeah, I think it's good, right? I mean,
yeah.
you feel like there's positive externalities from it in terms of people getting more involved with their government officials or their HOA board, for instance. Right. I think it's a good thing. I mean, I think people have become way more irritable through this whole process. That's probably where the spiciness from last night came from, right?
Yeah, do you worry about that?
I do.
With our community?
I feel like everyone's on edge. You know, you just go out, you go to any big city in this country, it just feels...
No, forget the big cities.
Not even the big cities.
I'm talking about Dry Creek Ranch.
Okay.
Because I feel like this is, if you ever...
Well, not us. We're all lovers on our street, so we're good.
I'm not worried about West Cardinal. But I do worry about that same... Somebody said after the HOA meeting on Facebook, they're like, look, can we get some positive something or other? Like, we all love this community.
Yeah.
And it's true. But I think people are so on edge that the HOA meeting, which should be a boring affair,
right,
turns into this, gosh.
Nuclear fallout.
Okay, let me give you a couple pieces. First off, hang on a second. Refill yourself there, will you?
Okay, yeah.
So one of the first big thing that started getting spicy right away, was RV and trailer parking. Okay, so the couple people are like, hey, can we get some clarification for the HOA rules? And right away they're like, you got 72 hours. They're like, no. From when? And the people up there were kind of like, from when? What does he mean from when? I don't know.
They're all whispering in the meantime.
Yeah, right.
How many people are representing the Boise 100 homes?
Dude, okay. So it was literally like two people spoke.
Got it.
It was a little brutal. So the point is,
they were the ones that lost the rock, paper, scissors.
Oh, dude. You have no... I'm going to...
Throw Bill and Nancy up there. They're good. They can handle it.
I have the whole thing recorded, but I didn't want to start the first Dry Creek Ranch podcast starting with that because it was too fiery. But they're like, look, here's the deal. We have a trailer or tow behind, whatever, and we need to load it. We have 72 hours to load it. And they're like, yeah, you have 72 hours. They're like, well, our neighbor keeps calling the cops on us anytime it even pulls up. So the cops show up, and now we're wondering how long
that neighbor, by the way?
I don't know where these people live.
Back to the point of people just being a little irritable.
Right. And so literally every time this person brings, I mean, look at where we live. People enjoy RVs. They enjoy fifth wheels. They enjoy all kinds of stuff. And it's not like you just throw a suitcase in there, right? Like you have to pack the fridge. You have to take care of it. You have to maintain it. You have to extend it out to pack different places.
Right.
And so this neighbor keeps calling the cops on him. And so they're like, that was the first thing. They're like, I need to know exactly when the 72 hour starts. Here's another interesting thing. Violation guy comes around every 2 weeks. Okay. So if you have something like a basketball hoop, watch out every 2 weeks. Here he comes, right?
Is there a way to know? That'd be a good app to know when the violation guy comes in.
We need to find out what his car looks like.
I know, exactly. Put the basketball hoops away.
Right. But here's the thing. How do you enforce or give a violation for something where you have a 72-hour grace period if you only come by every 14 days?
Yeah, totally.
Like if I pull up my trailer on Monday at 1 o'clock and the violation guy comes by at Monday at 1:30, he has no idea. So apparently they've just been writing violations. If they see anyone parked on the street or in the driveway, they're like, but I have 72 hours.
Right.
But the HOA, again, is only doing it every 2 weeks. So the RV, it's like, how do you know I didn't move it? Like I go on a 2-week trip. Oh, it's brutal.
It is.
It's a little spicy. It's a little spicy. It got dicier, but we'll deal with that later.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you guys had any problems at the pool?
At the pool, in terms of what problems?
So somebody brought up.
I really would like to have umbrellas. That'd be nice.
Oh my God, I know. That's what they brought up. So guy said, he was like, listen, we're getting some shade sales, but you need to be careful what you wish for. And it's like, yeah, I wish for shade.
I wish for not having blisters all over my body.
And the poor guy, I just feel like he was having a really difficult time communicating, because then he went into this thing about how he's from Arizona and we've had, a few weeks of semi-hot weather. It's like, buddy, we didn't move to Arizona.
Right.
We moved here.
Correct.
So for here, it's hot. Like, I don't know what to tell you. He's like, well, if we shade the whole thing, I don't know if you're going to be happy, because, if we have the day in the 80 or 90s,
right.
It's going to be, and everybody's like, shaded? It's going to be shaded? That'd be nice. But he was trying to make this point that we're causing problems by wanting it shaded, and perhaps we shouldn't actually want it shaded to the degree that we do. And everybody's like, I just want it shaded. Like, let me deal with it.
I know.
But
umbrellas can be dangerous. That was the first. That was the first letter that went out. Those umbrellas could be dangerous. Well, can pools be dangerous? Maybe we should just fill it with cement.
What is your thought on trying to have a good faith conversation with somebody with things like that? So for instance, let's say we have two conflicting motivations. You don't want umbrellas and I want umbrellas. Okay, I'm like, hey, it's 105. The sun is scorching down on me, like it's sitting on my head.
Right.
I need an umbrella. And you don't want to give me an umbrella. So you're like, yeah, but umbrellas can be dangerous. Do you weigh both pieces equally?
I don't think so, because the guy that's saying no umbrellas is clearly insane.
Yes, but that's the way most people are arguing these days.
I know.
Like,
that's
it's
true.
literally like if you have 10 points for and I have 10 points against, no one sits down and they're like, all right, you have 10 points for, Matt has 10 against, but 8 of Matt's are trash.
Right.
People just don't do that because we've been fed so much ammunition from our sides.
Right.
It's like
totally.
Your side gave you the talking points.
Absolutely. And social media has perpetuated that too, where you fall into your echo chambers and you start following people that are like-minded, and you start hearing the things that you want to hear. And then all of a sudden it's challenged by an outside source and you're going, no, you're not allowed in my tribe. It's really dangerous.
Yeah, social media's terrible. What do you do?
Yep. We're a creative marketing team.
For what platforms?
It's the way the world is anymore. It's amazing.
But
it's the way that, social media is one of those, it is one of the most interesting things that have happened to society in the course of the last couple centuries at least. In that it provides so many good things. There's a lot of positive things that come from social media. It's helps people connect and stay connected with old friends and with family. There's lots of instances where, bad things will happen, and being able to quickly alert someone or be able to keep people honest. You've seen lots of videos of, where something bad happens, whether it's a police officer that's out of line or whether it's somebody that's breaking into a store. Instantly, you see people grab their cell phones and start taping it and then posting it out on social. I just had that instance a couple weeks ago being in Las Vegas where there was an active shooter scare at MGM where I was staying, and I was on the casino floor, and all of a sudden you see pure pandemonium, people running as fast as they could in a single direction, screaming their heads off, running. It's saying he's shooting all of us, even though there was not a single shot that happened. Everyone's on edge, as we all know. But in that instance, I ran into an employee lounge with a crap stealer, and he was nice enough to let me in. I was tempted to steal his badge and just go in there.
I'm going to die in Vegas with a crap stealer.
I know. So I'm sitting in there, sitting in this employee lounge. They had a great buffet in there, by the way. They take care of their employees.
It's leftover crab.
Yeah, exactly. It was leftover from the buffet from that morning.
But
to that point,
could
right?
you imagine eating Vegas crab at 7 a.m. at like some 24-hour thing, and you've been up all night?
That's when you have to do a check of your whole life at that point. A full reevaluation. How you doing, buddy? Does not look like I'm doing very good right now.
A full factory reset.
Yeah, full factory reset.
Hold the volume button and the on button. Because you have gone far afoot, my friend.
Where's that little needlepoint pin where I can press the restart button?
Oh my God, 7 a.m. Anyway, so you're hiding.
I'm hiding in this employee lounge.
And for the record, it's not 7 a.m.
Yeah, it's not 7 a.m. It's midnight. I go onto Twitter and I quickly look up the tag of MGM Grand, and instantly you can see people talking in real time of what's happening. and someone posts on there that this is a false alarm. It was at the front. There was not gunshots. Someone was throwing rocks at the valet windows, and it's not gunfire. Everyone relax. And so in that instance, hoping that person is accurate, your nerves start to cool and people start to chill out, and it's in some ways social media can be useful. It can be a great way to be informed, to learn about both sides if you're careful with it. If you abuse it, you're going to fall into the trap that people on January 6th did. So you have to use it correctly, and it's also a great way too for small businesses, not just large businesses, but small businesses to accurately find and acquire new customers. And that's where the use of data and the tools of social media can be a play to a benefit. Obviously, we all know the pitfalls of it. One of which is letting kids be on TikTok for 4 hours a day. That was the stat, by the way. It's the most recent one that we saw from the TikTok team. It was that the average user right now is spending about 3.5 hours on this platform a day.
Dude, and those are like 15 to 45 second videos.
I know
they can go longer now, but like
think of the editing, especially if you're a creator on TikTok. I mean, you're spending a lot more time on that platform because there's editing and all kinds of stuff that goes into it, and and making sure you have the right hashtags and getting it placed and all the stuff that goes into that. It's really sad, and then people at the same breath talk about how time is just flying by. I just feel like I look back and I'm trying to figure out how time flew and how my kids are all of a sudden grown up, and it's like you got to be present in life. There's a lot of distractions out there.
Yeah, and the thing with the TikTok is it's not just the domain of the 16-year-old, right? Like I have a friend, Jerry, and he was actually one of the first guys to be like, "This is crazy, I'm out." Right? And he was crushing in California, but moved to Nevada. His oldest is going to UNR, so he was happy to move there.
Right.
So he's like 20 minutes away from her. But I'm on a group text back home with my buddies, and he sends TikTok videos all day long. It's like, Jerry, what are you doing?
How old is he?
Oh, he's like 53. Like, he's just, and like, I spend some time on TikTok, and here's the problem. I've curated my TikTok to feed me things that I think actually make me a better person. And
right.
So, for instance, I'm a big fan of Jordan Peterson, and he pops up like every third video, right? And then I'm a big fan of comedy, and so I follow some real stand-up comics. And then I just appreciate the shtick that some people have come up with. Like there's this one, oh God, I love her. There's this one woman who plays multiple characters in this like ongoing workplace drama, right? So she's Susan, who is this like total type A work pushing boss in a call center, right? And Veronica, who's constantly like, every time Veronica gets called up, she pops up with her like 48 and she sits on the stool, and it's all on green screen. This woman's in different costumes, right? And they all have these different personalities. Deborah's this workaholic, and then there's this like new, 17-year-old kid working there. And she plays all these characters. Now,
right.
I've done multi-character stuff before, like grammar stuff, right? Where I play the teacher and I play the student. I put on my Letterman jacket, turn my hat backwards.
There's got to be video somewhere of this. We got to see it.
Yeah. I'll show you for sure. And the thing is, with this woman who does this, I know how hard it is to do that because she's literally on a tripod and it's a green screen. So I don't know where she is. She's got to be in like a living room or something. And she's playing all of these different characters super well. And the editing is fantastic. Like her timing is just on point. And these are all like mini dramas that are 60 seconds or fewer. And watching this, it's like I started following her, I think a week or two ago. And I showed my wife. I was like, look at this woman. Like the internet wins. Like this is unleashed creativity.
It's crazy, right?
And nuance. Do you remember when you were a kid? There was zero appreciation, and perhaps you had started shifting past that. There was zero appreciation for creative types.
Right.
Right. You're good at math. You're good at English. And then you're the kid whose parents are like, he's really creative. But there was no there's no real creative outlet.
He said the C word.
Yeah. Like it was so
You're right,
bad.
though. It was stigmatized. Like you did not want to be the left brain kid, the kid that like was good at art, or he was a comedian or was good at impromptu
Right.
or whatever the case may be.
Who liked making music
Yep.
in his room, like by himself. Nobody cared about that guy.
going to live in corporate America. You're never going to survive.
And
that's
now
the
it's like,
point.
guess what? I'm 16 and I already have like 10,000 followers and I actually make money.
Right.
Like I had a baller student. She was epic, right? She was good at a lot of different things. But in 8th grade, she started a YouTube account that was dedicated to making goo. Okay. And she had all these different recipes. She would put different additives and sparkles and, 3-leaf clovers and all this stuff. And she would sell it. So she had this YouTube channel that had something like 100,000 followers that were following. She's in 8th grade and she's making
It's unbelievable.
goop. Yeah. And it's green and it's red. And she's like, well, I had to modify the formula. So my mom was buying me like gallons and gallons of, she was using laundry detergent and then cornstarch and all these different things. And it was like, she was 13.
That's incredible. And then all of a sudden the light bulb turns on and they go, wait, I don't need to go down the traditional path. I think that's one of the things that education today and the way that it's been modeled, since World War II, we kind of fell into this model of, you go in and you go through school this way and it's, it's just, you're trying to, well-rounded is really what everyone wants to be. You want to get your kid to be a well-rounded individual. But why? Why would you want your kid to be well-rounded? Why wouldn't you want them to explore a passion that they love and let them just do it to the extreme? If you look at like the most successful people out there, I wouldn't classify them as well-rounded. I would say that they're the opposite. I would say that they are very, very good at one specific thing that they do an incredible job at. And it's like that should be championed, not stigmatized. And I think that, related as it goes back to social media too, it's kind of leveled the playing field in a bit. Like people that were creators, people that were, let's say, comedians or actors or whatever the case may be, you were beholden to the aristocratic people in those, film studios or whatever the case may be to say this.
Yeah, the industry owned you.
The industry was the one to dictate who that next person is going to be.
That's right.
This is going to be the next Conan O'Brien. We're going to give this spot to Jimmy Fallon. We're going to give this spot to David Letterman. Whatever the case may be, back just using the tie-in to comedy. But in every form, it's leveled the playing field where creative people like a Mr. Beast or a Dude Perfect can go in and say, I have this idea of something that I want to do. I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to grab a couple cameras. We're going to do a little, we're going to bootstrap it. We're going to throw some cool shit up on the screen and we're going to run with it. And look what it's changed. I mean, it's the whole dynamic is completely different. It's I think that's a good thing. I think it's a really good thing. I
can't argue any piece of that because I'm very much a beneficiary of that style of economy now because
right.
I've never been employed, right? Like I invented a teaching profession when I was 22 and I graduated college. And like the next week I was tutoring privately. They're like, oh, well, what, like, do you have your teaching credential? I was like, nope. No, I don't. They're like, well, what, what's your experience? I'm like, I tutored at Cal for a couple years and I think your kid's going to like me. And that was it. Like I'd show up and the kids were always happy to see me. They were always happy when I left.
Right.
And the parents realized really quickly, like, oh, this is really great. But the thing I realized at 22 is, and especially over COVID, what you realize is that the school system, especially the public school system, has 100% a captive audience. So like say you own a restaurant. All right, Connor's, I don't know, flapjacks. All right, so you own flapjacks. And
big flapjack
guy. Blueberry, buckwheat, the whole thing, right? So no matter what, everyone in Dry Creek Ranch has to come to get flapjacks from you. And not like they have to come get flapjacks when they feel like it. They're going to be there every single morning.
Right.
All right. That will promote a certain mentality in you, a certain level of quality control. It's gonna make you act in a certain way. Versus you realizing that you could have no customers tomorrow if you didn't make it overwhelmingly worth it for people to show up to your establishment. And what you see, the classic example is like a history teacher that everybody hates. The history teacher thinks he deserves to have the students there because the students are all looking at him. They can't get out of class. And he obviously doesn't think, like, I know this stuff and you're just not taking advantage of what I'm offering you, blah, blah, blah. It's like, buddy, listen, if you got put into the open market and like the students actually got to pick which history teacher they wanted to go to, Are you really sure you'd be the number one pick? Are you really sure you'd have anyone in your class?
Right.
Right. And because students have to go to school, schools as an institution get this captive base. So they're not beholden. They're not beholden to the wishes or wants or desires of the average community.
That's so true.
And it's one of those things where, again, as a 22-year-old, I looked at it and I was like, oh no. Like, there's no, like, they have all the students. If I want to be a teacher and I don't want to participate with them in that form, I have to make something up. And I ultimately did. But it's like, that's the beauty. Like, I look around. It's like, I was telling my students, a year ago, like, there's so much opportunity in the world. It's rotting on the vine. You have so many many
the opportunity
avenues.
here now is so vast. I mean, I think the American dream is as alive and well as it's ever been, to be honest. I really do. I think that, I hear some of these, some of the older generation like to complain about, there's the reason why there's no service when you go out. It's because nobody's working, and it's we've all known it from COVID. There's been a labor shortage, and I have a different philosophy, and that, I mean, there's a train of thought where it was they got a bunch of government handouts and they just decided to stop working. I don't believe that's the case. I think that in a lot of ways, I think COVID has opened the eyes of a younger generation to go, I don't have to go work at a Starbucks for $12 an hour.
Right.
I can go drop ship on Amazon. I can start a YouTube page. I can give coaching lessons online. I mean, I can do a host of different things that can easily replace a minimum wage job. Right. And I don't have to work. I don't have to exchange my time for money all day long. And that's really what it is. It's like this agreement between man that has said, I'm going to exchange a small wage for all of my time throughout the day. And I think in a lot of ways, this younger generation, like especially the Gen Zers, have opened up to go, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't like that agreement. I don't want to have to exchange all of my time for a piece of money. I can exchange. I want to be creative. I want to create throughout the day. I want to solve a problem. I want to find some niche that I really enjoy, and you can go tackle it. If you have the right drive to do it, you can easily replace a job.
You know what's interesting? So first off, how many unhappy Uber drivers have you ever met?
Yeah, not very many. Most of my Uber drivers are like a 6-year-old guy that they got the job just so they could talk to people.
Right. Like, and it's amazing how much legislation has come after Uber when I've never met an unhappy Uber driver. It's like they're not screaming for a union.
No.
They're like, hey, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah.
Like I met this woman. She was taking me to the airport. And she was from Sacramento, 90 minutes away from where I lived. I'm like, you drove from Sacramento? She's like, yeah, I leave at 4 because then I grab some people at like 5:30 because the first big flights are going out at like 6:30 or 7 from Oakland. Mm-hmm. So, I just drive and listen to a podcast and start picking people up, and then I drive home. And it was like, that works? She's like, yeah, it's great. And especially
that's
since
a perfect example of how capitalism drives efficiency. And that's why Uber, and they knew that when they created the Uber models, they knew that if people are working for themselves and they're motivated, as opposed to a cabbie where you're solely based on tips, you're going to give them a piece of the action with the ride. And because of the capital structure of Uber, people are going to find the most efficient way to serve the people that they serve. And I think that's why there are some pitfalls to Uber, but for the most part, it's the most highly efficient transportation tool in the world. And it's because capitalism solved the problem.
Right.
It's crazy.
And it's amazing how much like the union just went after it.
Oh, they did. Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
They get so protective for obvious reasons, right? I mean, you would, if it was your sole thing, that's what you would throw a fit over it too. But I love it. I think that's why I'm not a big union fan. I'm also a big capitalist.
Right. What you were saying about the Gen Z kids just not wanting to do it for the man. I also think that they're making trades that they're very aware of, especially for males, right? So, they don't really have a time frame for having kids.
Right.
And let's say you want to have kids, but you're like, look, I can have kids at 40. I can have kids at 30. And we both know that there may be drawbacks to that. But when you're 24 or 25, you're not that worried about it. So there's this resurgence of the van life, right?
Right. Totally.
Where people are just getting those sprinters. You see EM Motors over on State and what's that other road? But they have these.
Yeah, I've seen them. The tricked out like sprinter vans that are out there.
Did you know they're like
Those things are so cool.
$200,000 each?
Yeah, that's cheaper than a home though for a Gen Z kid.
It's true. That's actually true. And if your rent was going to be to $2,000 a month, so $24,000 a year, and you're living in a $200,000 car that you can easily get a payment for, or a loan for, then you're doing all right. But they're making trades with stability and family, especially guys, right? Because guys can delay it a little bit more. But also the creative things that you're talking about can be accomplished in a very small space. So you don't need a whole lot if you're some creative type or you're some vlogger or you're, whatever it is you are. You're like some TikTok personality.
Right.
You need an iPhone at the bare minimum, and you can get a long way with your iPhone if you're doing TikTok or other social media. Then get a MacBook. Take your MacBook from your sociology degree and go into video editing with it.
Yeah, I think the barrier to entry with so many jobs is so low now. Like you can jump in and kind of design a proof of concept, and then from there just iterate until you find something that's really good and that meets the need of society.
That's the thing that I keep coming back to, meeting the need, right? Because people are meeting the need that it's almost like we have let go of this assumption about look, what will it take to meet this need, right? And moved into, look, is the need met or not? That's it. I don't care how long it took. I don't care what it is. People need to be entertained. Right? They actually don't care about large production costs. They actually don't care about this. They
it's
care
not impressive to them.
Right. They care about something
the core
funny.
Of the concept is and what the content is. They enjoy.
Right. And I think that's where the large the industries are really getting their asses kicked because, if you're in the entertainment industry and you're like that legacy industry where you have studio sets and all this stuff, it's like, okay, how is this one person with a bad green screen gaining, 1 million views a day, and she's spending nothing aside from a cell phone plan, and we are spending tens of millions of dollars and struggling.
It's just having that authentic connection with somebody. It's like the one that I come back to is Barstool Sports. If you see their content, it's like Barstool it's not production level. A lot of it is a lot of kids that are just in their New York headquarters that are just filming stuff with a with a hand, either their phone or, some small camera. And it's a mess everywhere in the office. It's not clean and beautiful like an ESPN, right?
Right.
ESPN is very production. Everyone's wearing suits. It's very, very polished. And it's they've got the scripted lines.
Right.
Barstool is impromptu. It's they're talking about the same content. They're talking about the game last night, but they're doing it in a way that's so authentic and real that people our age and younger are I'll take the Barstool brand.
Right.
I don't assimilate with ESPN. That's my dad's brand. And I think that's it's so, again, it's leveled the playing field. Dave Portnoy selling newspapers and cracking jokes at Boston Sports, going from that to Barstool, which is a media empire now. And he really hasn't changed it much. I mean, it's stayed true to itself. And I think that's what's resonating with people. It's just a real connection that's just raw and real.
Do you listen to a lot of podcasts?
I do, a little bit. I mean, not a ton, but I'm mostly a Rogan guy. I love listening to stuff.
Big fan.
Just
it's
such a great conversationalist. You learn a lot how he speaks to people and how he connects with people. It's just one of the greatest communicators next to Matt Todd.
I appreciate you. I was thinking about this the podcast thing today because I was working all day and it was great, and you get to the end of the day, I'm still super excited to come and talk to you, and I kept wondering why, because I knew it's look, no matter how the day goes, Connor shows up, I'm gonna have a great time.
Yeah,
it's gonna be great.
I love it.
And there's a level of humanness and real expression that comes out in this, because look, you and I have hung out untold number of times for hours,
right,
and hours and hours and hours. How many times have we hung out alone in the quiet and just stared at each other and talked?
It's a totally different setting.
It is. And again, you experience somebody in a way you would never, under any circumstance, experience them. right?
Totally.
Because even if you're on a flight together, you could be looking at your magazines, you could put your little head thing on, a pillow, you pass out. You're not even if you're chatting, you're looking straight forward. You're not looking over at each other. And that distinction in experience, I think, leads to something that's really different. And I think that's a lot of what people experience. They're like, wow, this connection these people have, and of course hearing from somebody, talk nonstop, if they're not terrible at it.
Right.
It's such a thing. Like the aspect of authenticity, people are just I don't think people realized how fake media was 20 years ago. Because
totally
the
is.
barrier to entry to put something on even if you had a local broadcast channel, you had to, like, do you remember VHSs and like splicing them and like trying to put the media together? And I remember recording videos off of the TV, right? When I was a little kid and like my favorite movie would come on and I'd like run to find a blank cassette. I'm like, oh my God, get it in, hit play. And you come in halfway through like a Pizza Shack commercial or something.
Yes, exactly.
It was like, but it was all fake. Like even those commercials. Right, you do media advertising at this point, right? Like, what types of commercials do people like more? The ones that look perfectly curated.
It's exactly such a good point, because it translates into marketing too. The thing that is converting, if you're looking at pure metrics, click-through rates, conversion rates, it is user-generated content is what's driving the best metrics, and that's selfie style, someone talking about a product or a service, and not in a way that's real salesy, but someone that's just giving social proof to whatever that item is or whatever that service is. And that's what's ultimately converting. Because I think people, they can read right through the production value of stuff and go, hey, I know they're trying to sell me. I got it. I hear it all the time. And that's the whole thing in social media too. It's like you're buzzing through a news feed, you're looking through reels or stories. How do you stand out? How is there something there that's going to make you ultimately stop scrolling and pay attention to it? And I think that's what real connection, it could be a face of somebody that's like, wow, that's a unique looking person. And then they start talking. You're like, wow, they really like that. That's cool. Right. And then it's embedded in the back of their mind. And then there's other techniques to get them to ultimately drive down the conversion funnel to get them. But it translates into marketing too. What's interesting too is, right now, there's all kinds of stats that say you have to get someone's attention. You really have about 6 seconds, anywhere between 3 and 6 seconds. That's how long they're going to interact with an ad. Or if they're watching a YouTube video, they'll watch the first like 20 seconds and then they'll skip around and then they'll end it. The other alternative to that is a podcast where people literally start it and finish it. And it could be a 2-hour, 3-hour long podcast, and people digest that. It's at the same clip as something that's 6 seconds long. It's wild. It's like it's either this or that.
Do you think
nothing in between?
Do you think that because marketers had captive customers, not an audience, because whether or not somebody watched the TV, right, or read the newspaper clipping, or I was a newspaper boy, paper boy when I was a kid, and I put the inserts in, and the advertisers are like, look, we're going to put these in. I don't know how many people are looking at it or engaging it, but we're going to put it in, and hopefully it drives sales, and the customer, right, like the store or whoever's advertising, like, damn it, man, okay, here we go, let's run the ads.
Yeah.
But because there was no alternative to that, people were allowed to get really lazy, right? Because there was no competition in the advertising world except other advertising agencies, and you were all doing the same thing. But now advertising agencies have to go up against billions of people who also want to gain ad revenue, right? So this woman who, you ever see Moon Tell That? Mm-mm. Oh my gosh, it's so great. So another set of personalities, right? So it's his husband and it's his wife, and the wife is, I think, Vietnamese, and the dad lives with him too, and he's got this like huge crazy accent,
right?
And they're super popular, right? And they do this bit. She always takes off her shoes and throws her shoe at him, and she's really pissed, and it's really funny. But they do commercials too, which kills me, because it's like, God, good for you guys, because I actually like them. I have no idea who these people are, but I love their shtick, and they seem like it's such a funny thing to watch. This, he's always giving her a hard time because she's mispronouncing things, and check it out. It's called Moon Tell That. Anyway, my point is, advertising agencies are now up against Moon tell that. Right? And so people are coming up with some of the most amazingly creative things that, like, if you have an ad agency with 20 people and you're just pumping out content, how in God's name are you going to compete with a person who can A/B test content 10 times a day for almost nothing, right? Like, you can see what resonates with people. You can find out on your own. Hey, look, none of this mattered, but I tried to make a geodome in the desert. Like, I made this stupid PVC pipe thing, and all the 20 videos before this were like me at my birthday and me with my friends, and nobody cared. And then I made this dome in the desert, and I thought it was really stupid. And I got like 2 million hits. I saw this account. It was amazing.
It's unbelievable.
And then he was like, every piece of content after that was about him and his dome. And they all got millions of hits. And now he's doing ad revenue for like camping and stuff. So if you're an ad agency trying to get REI to sign on with you, and you're up against Dome Guy who's making a tent in the desert and everybody loves to see it, it's like, how are you going to compete? Like, you can't even see that stuff coming.
Yeah, it's so crazy. It's good, though. I really do think, I think competition is the best thing that America has going for it. I mean, it's the thrill and the chase of the American dream just drives up quality and it drives prices down. Like, everything it improves exponential every single decade. Like, it's just amazing how you see the innovation in people and the things that we do to constantly iterate and improve from every really good company is doing it, and every good individual is doing it. And it's just, America is going to continue to be the dominant leader in the world because of it. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, but competition is so goofy. Like, did you ever have like competition anxiety when you were a kid?
Oh, 100%.
Like, it's so terrible, but it's literally when you're trying to instill this in your kids, it's like, this is going to be the shittiest cookie you've ever eaten in your life, but you're going to be happy you can eat it.
Yeah, right.
Open up. It's so true. And again, you better be a savage competitor in whatever you're doing.
Right. There is no place for good in this economy. Like, you have to be great. Good's only going to get you so far. You have to be outstanding. I
feel like people are really getting exposed too. Here's one thing,
especially in bad economies, when things start to wane. Which, recessions are good because it's, Elon Musk talks about it. There's a misallocation of capital.
Right.
A lot of people that should not be getting rained on with cash, they need to stop getting rained on with cash.
Right. The industry needs to contract, whatever industry
you're in.
Right.
It needs to contract. It needs to consolidate, and then the winners will ultimately rise out of this, and will be stronger on the other side.
Right.
That's why recessions are healthy.
Which in general brings better products for the consumer as well.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, because you can trim profit margins, you can trim the fat. I mean, as long as you're not doing it in a irresponsible and unethical way, right? Like destroying your employees' lives to get them to run faster through the Amazon the Amazon warehouse.
For too long in this economy, the employers have been destroying the employees have been destroying the employers' lives. A lot of demands on their side.
Yeah, man. What do you think about that? Because
it's all leverage.
You have almost 100 employees at your company, and you are directly in charge of like 40 of them or 50 of them. How do you manage responsibly? And I'm sure you do. How do you manage everyone's, like, every employee wants to make more money, right?
And they should. They've got to look out for themselves, and that's their fiduciary duty to their household, is to make sure that they're driving their top line, and it's our fiduciary duty as stakeholders in the company to drive our top line. So you have to balance those two very carefully.
So, like, Taco Tuesday only twice a month?
Right. No, it's great. I mean, it's great. I mean, and I think it also plays into competition. Like, the great ones are always going to be well taken care of. And we're going to do everything we can to fight, and inside our means to fight and keep the ones that we can. But in a very lopsided job market like we've been in for so long, it's very clear who has the leverage right now, and it's no fault of C Squared Social, and it's no fault of the employees. The market is dictating a certain price, and we can either match it or we're going to have to let them go.
Right.
And so that's the way it goes. It's a pretty wild, lopsided situation to be on the negotiating table.
Yeah. You know, and you deal with a lot of creative people because that's what you're in, right? Like creative marketing. And you would think when you're in your industry, you're just kind of like training your competitors because, you know, you got 50 people and you're creating and making stuff all day. Why is it that they don't just step out and do that thing? But I mean, and I'm sure some do, and perhaps I'm wrong, but I'm willing to bet the majority don't. And if that is true, do you think it's because what is required to actually leverage that creativity is like the old school nasty that, you know, our parents' generation had, where it's like, I'm going to work 24-hour day because I have to get all this stuff done.
Right.
Because when you pull back the curtain on creators that are successful, they are grinding. And, you know, like this gal I'm talking about with the green screen and stuff, I have no illusions about how difficult it is for her to not just make one of those, but make a new one every single day, right? Like, and I've gone through phases where I'm posting 3 times a day with different videos, and it's like new distinct ideas and like trying to put out fresh content.
Right.
That takes a lot of the old school, you know, push that is not really known to be a character of the creative types.
That's true. Yeah, and they still have to balance, you know, the creative types. They like, you know, full creative will and be able to just having that.
You want some more ice for that, by the way?
No, I'm okay.
Okay.
Thanks, I'm good.
You're welcome.
They want the flexibility, and they want, you know, they don't love timelines, and so that's when sometimes you have to step in and be tough. And, you know, it's trying to wrangle creative people can be like wrangling cats because they just think differently. They're not deadline focused. They're not, you know, they're not very, you know, they've got, for all their high qualities, they've got great qualities. It's just they're not thinking it in terms of a business owner in many cases. So you have to kind of, you know, balance that a little bit.
I appreciate the argument that you can't rush art and you can't rush creativity.
I totally agree with that. Yep.
But then there is the flip side, which is, okay, that may be true, and you may not feel fantastic about this, but you're putting something out today, and like that's it. You got to show up to work.
We have a paying customer that needs a deliverable. You really need to get this over the line.
Really got to do something. It may not.
They can appreciate the creative prowess that you have, but they also appreciate deadlines hit.
Yeah. Do you guys have is there an industry kind of standard where you're only as good as your last like hit? Essentially with say advertising, say you had somebody working for you that had crushed it with a certain account, right? And they had done really, really well. And say that customer sold and they moved on or whatever. And now that person is, you know, trying to create for the next person and the next person and keeps kind of bombing.
Right.
Is there that pressure, which is like, look, I understand you did really well 6 months ago, but you've been really flat. So you either have to change
totally,
or there's the door.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has got we all have our metrics of what success looks like in our given departments, right? Whether it's creative, it means putting out content that looks great, they're eye-catching, we know and it's proven in the data that it's converting. And the second one is making sure that it's done on time and under budget. And those are the key metrics for like a creative type. And then there's sales, obviously. We all know sales is definitely what have you done for me lately? Congratulations on the big quarter. Tomorrow starts a new day.
Here we go. You're reborn, son.
Yeah, exactly.
Better or worse. With what you were just saying, the creative types being gauged by metrics. Sales has classically been like the most quantifiable thing. It's like,
no doubt,
you made a sale
yes,
or you did not. And again, coming back to marketing,
and everyone is jealous of sales because they
right,
all like it doesn't matter what company. Sales typically is the one that they're the department that makes the most amount of money in terms of, you know, commission dollars and everything else. Their comp is typically higher than the average person in the company, and there's a lot of jealousy there. At the same time, it's like, do you understand the pressure that salespeople are constantly on? Like, it doesn't matter if it is Christmas Eve. If they're going into the end of December and they haven't hit their quarter and they haven't hit their month, they're sweating out Christmas. Like, there's no question about it. They're sweating it out. They're like, as soon as my boss gets back from holiday vacation, I'm toast come January 3rd.
Right.
So I mean, those are the things they don't take into account. So
Yeah, but
too much is given, much is required.
I agree with that. For the people that have always been in creativity, though, this has got to be the first time in history where you can really quantify creative success.
True.
Right? Like on a mass scale. It's kind of like, hey, I hired you to make things that would look good. Mm-hmm. And I know what looks good because the interwebs tell me how many people looked at this. And I don't care if you think it's the most beautiful, thumbnail you've ever made. The interwebs disagreed, and I'm in business with them.
Exactly.
Like,
the data is showing otherwise. Can't argue with data.
How do you manage that with them? Because again, creativity is not a world that has classically been quantifiable, right? Like, art,
and truthfully, we're just starting to really compile enough data points to be able to measure success in the creative realm. We haven't done much of that in the past. We just have we've really relied on anecdotes. So I love data as much as I love being creative and coming up with cool ideas and trying to find the next thing and iterate. I love iterating businesses. It's my favorite thing is let's just come up with this new idea and this new idea and this new concept. This is failing, so let's find a solution for that. And I love that process. But at the same time too, I really love being able to see how things are measured in data. And it's so cool.
Creativity for creativity's sake is something you do on the weekends. Let's be clear. You want to play the guitar and you want to get good at the guitar and you're just going to play the guitar. That's like the weekend pursuit or the evening pursuit.
Right.
I love being creative too. But at some point, if you're going to call yourself a professional creator, that's a different thing. Because here, we're not being creative just for fun.
Correct.
You have to be creative with a very, very specific goal. And the more flexibility and the more avenues and nuances you can go down for creative outlets.
Right.
It's like I had a friend, or not a friend, but a student whose dad was a famous artist. And he came up with these ridiculous, he came up with beautifulswearwords.com. I don't even know if it's still around. But he would
That is great.
Dude, he would hand draw fuck.
Right? That is
But in the most elaborate, and then he would scan it, get it in Photoshop, change the colors, but they were all hand done, and they were gorgeous. Some of them were these big bubble letters, and some were these old school, almost Victorian looking words. You're how
beautiful
did you
cuss words?
Yeah,
but
beautiful
where do you
swear
come
words.
Up with that? Yeah,
right.
That is amazing.
Right, but he had a really clear point. So he was exceedingly creative. He was always doing these things, and he was really eccentric too, which was funny.
So he got famous over this?
He got famous,
relatively well known.
So he got famous enough to get into this free art college in New York, right? So there's an art college in New York. Tuition is free. It's exceedingly difficult to get into, and if you get into it, you have a good future in the art world. Right. And his dad was an artist, and he really wanted to follow in his footsteps. His older brother wanted to be a doctor, so obviously different sides of the brain.
No doubt.
But he came up with this. So his goal, he was like, look, I'm all about being creative, but I need something that's creative that will deliver to me a portfolio that I could then share with the admissions officer. So he made beautifulswearwords.com.
Oh, my gosh.
And it worked, man.
And that domain was available.
Right. And it was back in the... Here, let me fix this for you because I can see...
What is that?
This. I can see you're kind of moving your eyes up and down.
There we go. You're good.
The thing what was funny was he found the domain and then did a couple, and he became... how was stuff shared back in the day? 2008? I can't remember how it got shared, but he had... It was
via
Twitter...
email. It was kind of Web 1 right now. Well, 2008 there was...
No, because he had I remember showing it to my brother back in the day, and my brother's like,
Facebook
he's
came
a,
on,
he's a
2005?
meme.
Something like that.
That was the first time I had heard the phrase meme. Because he was like, he's a meme. I'm like, what's a meme? And he was like, oh, it's somebody who's really popular.
Who came up with the name meme, by the way? What does that mean? Is it an acronym?
I don't know. All that I know is that this guy was getting hundreds and thousands of likes and comments, and people were like, oh my gosh, this is great. Love the juxtaposition, all this stuff. And so he became this really popular guy in the art world because of this. So it's kind of
so crazy.
I know, but that's the beautiful thing. If you have art, But you have art with a purpose, and especially in your realm where it's like we can quantify who's the better artist. So like the better artist get pushed up, and then it's a better artist across a wide swath of mediums, right? Can you write creatively? Can you produce stills creatively? Can you do videos creatively? And then can you do different subjects? It's like then you really find out who the best artist is.
Wouldn't it be great, like back in the day, to put Michelangelo and Da Vinci, like to put data behind their paintings and be like, all right, guys, we're about to see which one is the better artist. We're gonna put this to bed. Who is the better artist?
But that's back when people were drunk like 90% of the time, right? Like they were right around the Renaissance, right? Like that's where they popped out.
Renaissance, right?
Right. So do you know the origin or some people's argument for the origin of the Renaissance?
I'd love to hear it.
Oh my God. It was the most beautiful thing when I finally heard it. So
they were coming out of the Dark Ages.
Right. And part of yanking people out of the Dark Ages wasn't just like mushrooms, right? It's like you had
It could have been. I mean, you never know.
Well, it wasn't.
Maybe they discovered ayahuasca.
It was in part, it was definitely people in altered states, but it was in reverse. So before they had sanitized water, people would drink gin and beer all day long. So people were intoxicated all day and in kind of like this mentally depressed state all day long because they didn't have clean water. The Renaissance started at the beginning of the sterilizing of water, and all of a sudden coffee houses and tea shops started popping up.
Unbelievable.
Right. So there's
people sobered up.
Not only did they sober up, but they also got jacked up on caffeine. And they were like, just imagine like a horrible hangover for 30 years. And all of a sudden you take a couple shots and you're like, oh, and all of a sudden you get like this music and this art and this mass creativity. Now, obviously they couldn't express themselves effectively. I mean, it was still a really dark time for a lot of people.
Right.
Violent and dangerous. So it's not like they didn't have time to be sitting around. It was more like Game of Thrones style. So like you had a guy like playing a little flute or something, but then he gets his head cut off, right?
The big dining hall.
Yeah, oh my God.
The big dining hall with candles.
Yeah, right, just like all melted and stuff. But now you have an infinite number of ways to express yourself. You have all the stimulants like Bang and like Monster and all these energy drinks. And you have, oh my God, right? You ever tried Adderall?
Yeah.
How is
it? It's a little too good.
A little too good.
No, it's good. I can see the dangers of it though, for sure. I do have ADHD to an extent. I can know how to control it in my older years, but I can see how it can be super helpful. But I can also see how it can be incredibly dangerous and addictive. No question about it.
Man, but I just love coffee.
And coffee is a drug as well. It's a different kind of drug, but it's definitely a drug.
But look,
did you know I heard a story about it was right during the industrial age in the United States where it was a manufacturer of neckties, and the CEO of this company, it was like coming out of World War II. And the demand was completely off the charts because people were out and they were partying and everything was good. And he was trying to understand how he got. It was a lot of women that were in his factories producing these neckties, and they were on the sewing machines. And he was essentially the person that invented the coffee break. So around 2:00. He had a mandatory coffee break where everyone took it 30 to 45 minutes off their sewing machines, and he provided free coffee, and his production jumped 2x.
This is a true story.
This is a true story, and hence the genesis of the coffee break.
God bless that man.
And that's why coffee is in every break room in the world.
I would love a formal coffee break. I would love any semblance of formality in my life. Like, do you miss that? Like, think about that. What if we came out of COVID and instead of coming out like the two just loser dads we are, we came out in like 3-piece suits? We're like, I'm going out.
And it just did the
opposite.
Going
out, baby. Here we go.
And it's just the opposite. It was just people just, they got comfortable wearing sweatpants to work and complete slobs.
Yeah, if they show up to work.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I will say just a little self-deprecation. I stopped doing the real close shave like you did since COVID. I was like, just gonna go a little shag. We got lazy.
Yeah, but like, have you ever tried to go real formal? Like when I was
Oh, I love it. I love going real formal.
Why don't you then?
I know. I really should. Should
Like
we just start?
you need
Have
some
you seen Idaho? I
pinstripe
would stand
stuff.
out like a sore thumb out here. I mean,
don't
everyone's
think you
got the
would.
big beard. Everyone's,
But who cares?
I guess so.
Who cares?
Go full formal.
Haven't you seen like the whiskey lover, giant beard, gut, 3-piece suit guy?
Yeah.
Like
You can do it. You can dress up.
dude, and he's got his own still in the garage.
Yeah.
And he goes real formal.
Well, let's do it, man. Let's go purchase some Benelli suits and start walking downtown with our 3-piece suits.
I mean, I'll start at Joseph Banks if that's cool. I don't know. I'll tell you what, I will do that. I'm going to do that. Do you know there's one influencer guy, Sebastian Groomer or something. I can't remember what his name is, but he does all these videos. He's got a little goatee, right? And he does all of his videos in a 3-piece. And he's a younger guy. I think he's like in his mid-30s. And I don't really like. I follow him just because occasionally he hits, but his production quality and his consistency, I'm like, you're on point. And like once a week, he gives me an idea. I'm like, all right, cool, awesome. But he is always in the 3-piece, and he's standing up. The thing I love about it, I don't know if there's anyone ever in the room, but he's always doing like a team meeting where he's standing in front of a whiteboard and he's like looking out into the crowd, not at the camera, out into the crowd. And he's like, and you have to recognize that no matter what, your life was yesterday. That's it. That's what your life was. And if you die today and say yesterday was what I did with it, if you're not happy with that, then you need to think about that today, right? And he's like, I made that whole thing up. But like,
That's great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That could be a TikTok video right there. Put some dramatic, cue the dramatic music.
I'm a creative type, Connor. I don't know what to tell you.
I love it.
Yeah, I mean, the stuff flows. So
put that on my mirror.
I say, I like your sneakers. I mean, we've talked about this. Your skinny jeans are okay. But I say we go.
My wife's a huge fan of the skinny jeans. These aren't even skinny. These are a normal fit. Like in California, this is not skinny. This is like
maybe they just look skinny on you. I don't know. Are you like a power lifter? Like you just have like real solid thighs?
No, I just like tacos at midnight.
Those have got to be like slim cut then or something. They're not boot cut, that's for sure.
They're not boot cut. I'm not a boot cut guy.
Do you see the bell bottoms tried to make like a quick comeback for like a hot minute?
Yeah. No thanks. And the mom jeans on girls, that's got to go.
I love the mom jean revolution.
You do?
I love it.
Really?
Yeah.
What a few.
No, listen. I think it's fantastic. Let me tell you why. Because one, it's far better than young women dressing like hoes all the time.
True.
Which is the alternative, right?
They do the halter tops though, just to kind of balance it out. You notice that?
I can handle that. It's a hot day. Like, it's totally fine. I don't
Have you ever thought about doing a halter top? What if we bring that trend into men?
No, it doesn't work. You want to know why? Because your upper arm, if you don't have a jacked bicep, then your bicep actually looks like a triangle, and it just like pathetically merges into your shoulders. Like if you pull your sleeve up, look at that. Look at that.
I'm talking like go up like above the belly button.
Oh, you know what I'm thinking? I'm thinking of
like Will Ferrell.
I'm thinking of like
cowbell
or something. Yeah.
More cowbell.
Well, Luke put on one of my medium-sized hoodies and like shotgunned a beer, and his gut
was that midriff bearing?
Yeah, it was definitely midriff bearing.
Yeah,
Luke made that look like a 5-year-old t-shirt.
God bless him.
Yeah, the halter tops, even with the mid stomach, it's like if you're not super low in your jeans, then it's like your jeans come above your belly button anyway. Like you see the lower rib cage, and that's it.
Yeah.
I just. So like I worked with teens for almost 2 decades, and I always respected girls who came in not dressed like a hoe far more. They were always funnier. They always had better personalities and
more confident typically too. More confident, better self-esteem. Not always, but it can be a thing.
I had this thing with my students. I was like, listen to me. For Connor to be famous, Connor has to like invent something. Like you got to come up with new punctuation or something like that.
Right.
Like a comma and a comma. Right. Like, I don't know. You got to come up with something.
How do you add something to?
I don't know. You have to perform well. Right. So you got to be super funny. You got to sing well. You got to whatever. You have to add something to the world. Like, and if you look at the world of social media, you have to be inventive. You have to be creative. You have to be an incredible performer. whatever it is, right? So let's take those three things. For a girl on social media to get attention, you have to be funny, you have to be creative, you have to be a great performer, or show some skin, right? And I told my students this all the time. I said, the problem with that is it's actually robbing you of your better self, because girls know young women are shown, not by us, but by the world.
Correct.
Young women are shown that they have this ticket to play no matter what. So they know they can always kind of
It's
fall
always
back
in their
on
back
it.
pocket.
Always in your pocket.
Yeah.
I always got this one. Boom, red dress right there. And because of that, there's not as much pressure to be the first three things: creative, funny, great performer.
Yeah, but think how much pressure it is to show skin too.
I know, it's
Insane
terrible
pressure.
both ways. It's terrible both ways. And that's why I think social media in particular is really bad for young women.
Really damaging. For young kids, it needs to be filtered. Parenting needs to step up across the country. Like, it's very, very, very important that you're monitoring what's happening online.
Come on. When you had a computer at like a family desk and
Yes.
everybody did their word processing on it, yeah, you could monitor because
Right.
you're making spaghetti looking at the screen.
Right.
You're not monitoring someone's cell phone now, and God help you if you do. Like, I don't want anyone getting onto my cell phone, and I'm not even like a crazy person.
Right.
You know, like
It's definitely harder. There's no question about it.
But like functionality, here's something from Peterson. And he's like, look, you want your kids to break rules. Because if they don't break rules, if your kids are rampant rule followers, they become depressed and anxious leading into adulthood, right? And he was actually referencing Harry Potter. He's like, that's the whole point. To do the best good they could do, they had to break rules, but they had to be very aware of what the rules were and why they were breaking them, what principles they were backing themselves up with that would lead to them breaking rules. And it's like, if you have somebody who breaks rules too much, they become antisocial. Nobody can trust them, and it's a real problem. It's like, so you don't want either extreme. So your kids have to break rules to a certain degree, and you probably don't want to hear too much about it.
Right.
You want to acknowledge that there's a broken rule. Like, for instance, let's say you have a 17-year-old. 17-year-old comes home real late. You get up in the morning, you're pouring your coffee, drinking your coffee. Kid comes downstairs like, oh, God. You're like, hey, buddy.
Hey there, sport.
What'd you get up to last night? Nothing. And you were like, you want a flapjack?
Want some of Dad's famous flapjacks?
Yeah. You're like, okay, you know more than nothing happened. But it's the nature of like, I have to allow you to break some rules and pay the price for it so that you don't all of a sudden have a landslide of rule breaking when it really matters.
Right.
And it's this frustrating lie that we as parents have to participate in, because you know your kid did something on Saturday night, and
Right.
you know you don't actually want to know, and you know to some degree you need to like reprimand them if they make it really obvious. Like, do you ever have a parent or like a friend's parent in growing up when they're like, well, I have to do something now because I obviously know. Like,
yeah, exactly. It's
if
like,
I
if I
didn't
didn't know,
know-
then I wouldn't have to do this. But now it's kind of now I'm like obligated to do this. I do that now. I mean, it's on a much smaller scale. It's not like them going out at night, but it's you see something, like, oh my gosh, I really don't have the energy, but I know as a dad, got to buck up. I got to do this. I've got to show discipline. Have to instill the right thing, even when you're tired and you're like, I wish I would have just not heard that.
Would have not. It's like, can we just really get past this right now? Like, can we just all go back 30 seconds? Pretend
Right,
none of that
exactly.
happened. It's brutal, man.
It is.
And again, I think people who come into teenage years with their children, like I hung out with teenagers every single day. And it's like, man, it's such a treacherous road.
Oh, man.
And especially when it's your kid. Because I know some parents would tell me like, oh, well, you just wait till your kids get older. I'm like, you don't have to tell me. I know.
Yeah, I'm all aware.
I see that you guys are intelligent and you're capable, and
Yeah.
you can't get your kid to listen to you to
Yeah.
save your life. Like,
Yeah.
I have no delusions about the train that's headed my way. when I was younger, right? Like left college, graduated, didn't just leave. When I graduated,
When I dropped out of college.
there you go. I had a semester to go. I just couldn't take it. When I graduated, I was hell on wheels, man. Because over the 4 years of being at Cal and being on the rowing team, and then I was in a liberal arts degree as well, surrounded by crazy people.
Right.
But like the whole point of I was a rhetoric major, and the whole point of rhetoric was just to argue with people, learn how to communicate, learn how to effectively argue, trap people. It was like a chess match. So it's like you had crazy people, but you got to unleash on them, and they would unleash on you, and it was like in front of people, and it would be difficult. But the point is, when I graduated, I was a monster. Like I had this insane work ethic. I was wholly self-convinced that I was right in every way.
Yeah.
And thankfully I was allowed to pay the price for it. Like whatever decision I made, I either benefited from it or I paid the price.
Right.
And I think one of the difficult things people experience now is their kids moving back home, and they want to shield the 23-year-old from the bad fallout of the decisions. It's like, maybe you would have made that sale on December 27th if you didn't know you had mom and dad's house to hang out in. Mm-hmm. You know, like you lost your job because you didn't buck up the last 5 days of the year, and your boss came back and he was pissed. You know, that doesn't really fly. You know, but I think it's very hard for adults of grown children to do that, because now they know the stakes are even greater. It's one thing to bail out a 15-year-old. Because you're like, I shouldn't bail them out. I should let them get in trouble. But like, when they're 23, it's like, oh, I know I shouldn't bail them out. But if I don't, they're going to lose this job.
Right.
And the move out is going to get kicked back like a year. And their resume is going to be blemished.
Right.
And like, oh, I hooked my son up with this job, with
the
my
stakes
friend's
are so
company.
high.
Oh.
I mean, the stakes are at the ages of our kids right now. The stakes are not high to that degree. I mean, the stakes are high in that they are in very impressionable ages, so they're building the foundation of who they're going to be right now. But at the same time, the consequences of their actions right at this moment they're not grandiose.
Do you worry about your kids growing up in Dry Creek Ranch?
No, I haven't really had that thought yet. How about you? That's a loaded question.
No, it's not. Let me be clear. I love it here. But it's so nice. Like, it's so nice. There are kids driving golf carts and stuff all day long.
Right.
And
I mean, there's a lot of privilege in this neighborhood. There's no question.
And like, I'm not shaming anyone, least of all you and least of all me. Like, I'm not shaming myself. This was a huge step up from where I lived. Even though where I lived was like this massively expensive spot, our house is beautiful, and it's the smallest house on the street.
Yeah,
right. But I love it, and it's fantastic. But I do get concerned with that.
I think the thing is, you just have to balance it with being able to give your kids enough, but not too much where they never want to do anything. And like it's easier said than done, but.
Don't you have like a 7-bedroom house, man? Like,
are you? It's 9.
It's 9.
That's my house, not their house.
Are you gonna play that card? By the way, I have a really.
There's no question I'm going to. My money is not their money. They're gonna have to go find their own money.
Go find it.
Yep.
It's not under my couch, baby.
My parents told me.
I had a buddy. He and his wife.
I'm going to help them. Like, I'm going to help them any chance I can, but I'm not going to give them handouts to their detriment. Right? It's not the way to go.
To that end, I have a buddy who went to Harvard. His wife went to Harvard. They do very well. Mm-hmm. Both attorneys, very intense people. Has these 3 kids, right? And the oldest boy says something about like whether it's a good life or something like that. And the kid's 17 at the time. And my buddy Barry looks at him and he's like, "What life?" And he's like, "Oh, like life." He's like, "This isn't your life. This is my life. I worked 45 years to have this life.
Right.
You are a visitor in my life right now. Like this house, this food, like this laundry detergent, that's all my life.
Right.
I'm just sharing a little with you."
I'm happy to share it with you.
Yeah.
It's
just to a point.
To a point. But at some point, you've got to make something for yourself.
Yeah, right.
This is mom and dad's, not yours.
Yeah, and his kid's like, Dad, I thought you loved me. He's like, oh, I love you to death.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't your life.
Right. It is so funny. It's a harsh way to put it, but there's truth in that for sure.
Yeah, my dad always, when I was growing up, my dad always played the "Don't do that to my couch," and I was like, "Oh, it's not fair. It's not fair because
he always says my couch.
I know
It's my couch too, Dad.
Oh, did you pay for it? Did you buy it? No, but I'm 7.
No, but I put a stain on it, so it's kind of has marks of me.
It's just, but there's no other way to do it. I really don't think there's another way to instill the fact that what children are experiencing is not something that they have made. Like they don't get to be proud that they live in Dry Creek Ranch.
Yeah.
Right? Like they didn't move here.
Yeah, this was...
your parents moved here. Your parents figured out a way to do it.
And it's I feel like we're the exception. I don't feel like most people, I'm not to label anybody in this neighborhood, but I feel like most people don't view it the same way that we do. I think most of them are like, they give their kids a lot, and they're going to continue to give their kids a lot even after high school graduation and college graduation. And it's like, you just don't want to get it to a point where the kids have like, I always have this safety net that I never have to really go and do my own thing because I always have something to fall back on.
Well, that's what happened with the Vanderbilts. So like the kids of the Vanderbilt would throw these famously lavish dinner parties. Like I'm talking absurd parties. So the party favor, like first off, you're eating on a gold plate, and the party favor,
right?
Cash. It's very cash. The party favor was they would come around with a tray with a little serving scoop, and they'd give you a velvet bag, and in the tray were precious stones and like gems and diamonds and stuff. And you just take a scoop or two, put it in the bag, and move on. Like that was your party. It's like, thank you for coming. Take some diamonds.
Take some rare jewels.
Right, and they all attributed their ease in life to their very lackluster results in life. They're like, look, why?
Right.
I didn't do anything because I never had to do anything.
Right.
Right. Like, how can you really? And you can't really argue with that. It's like Howard Hughes was that the famous character of somebody who was born into a lot and tried to make more of it. And I don't know, people have different varying degrees of how they view his successes, but I think it's really hard if you're born to, like how are Elon Musk's kids going to give a crap about anything? Like I'm sure one will. What does he have, like 10?
Yeah,
I don't know. He's got like one will.
There's a couple each week that we hear about on Twitter.
Yeah, right.
I think that the handout piece of like just physically handing over money or material items, that's not a good thing. But I will say, if you look at the broad scale, typically success begets success. Like if you see families that do extremely well, typically their children will do well because they just learn from, it's a master class that they wake up to all the time. Like if they're really paying attention, they're getting a master class from their mom and dad every single day on like how to become successful. And that's typically why successful children usually come from successful parents most of the time. And that's not always the case. There's some that just are gritty and just go and get it. But they also have traits that they saw from their parents as well.
Did you read any Malcolm Gladwell?
I did. It's been a long time though.
So he came up with a very interesting thing, favorable disadvantages, right? So, for instance, being born to a single mom. Okay, disadvantage, everyone agrees.
No question.
But it's a favorable disadvantage in that children of single moms are far more resourceful. They're like super scrappy. They just don't have guidance, which is, again, a disadvantage, but can also be an advantage in that they learn extreme ownership for their decisions at a young age. Whereas somebody might be learning it at 23, the 14-year-old realizes fuck around and find out. That's a bad idea. Right. And I think that's one of the things, the compensating factors that you're talking about. It's like, look, if you have a lot of resources and you have people looking out for you, you have high probability of being successful. But how people break through that and get past that, they actually have to take advantage of their favorable disadvantages. Because, if you have no accountability, your mom works till 6, you can come home from school and do drugs and get drunk every day.
Totally.
or
yeah,
not.
you can either take the cards that you get in life, and it's easy to say this from a place of it's a place of privilege. I had a mom and a dad, which is like that's the genetic lottery that you get just from being born in the United States is hitting the genetic lottery, and then to compound that, being born into a house that has a functioning mom and dad represented, that's also a huge leg up. Multiplied with the fact that you're born into a family that's white is also a huge factor in success. And it's like you can either, in the disadvantaged state, you can either take the cards that you get in life and either use it for, you can sit back and wallow in self-pity, or you can do something with it. And I've seen it go both ways, and it's amazing to see.
To think that you were born in the United States to two parents, you're Caucasian, you're male, you're like 6'3", 6'4".
Male is another key thing.
You have all of these advantages, and you walk around wearing skinny jeans. I just don't know how you blow.
All right, that's where we end the podcast.
Connor, it's been over an hour and a half. We're wrapping it up, baby.
All right.
Thank you for coming.
This has been an awesome time. We'll do it again.
Yeah, thank you for being the first guest on Dry Creek Ranch, baby.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. We chased our pleasures here, dug our treasures there. But can you still recall the time we cried? Break on through.